Hey YouTube, this is Trains and Destinations, and in today's video we're going to go ahead and take a look and review the Motorola Moto G6. So the Moto G6 came out in 2018. It is part of Motorola's very popular Moto G line, which is essentially their line of more budget phones. Not their most budget. The most budget would be the E series, but the G series has always been Moto's most popular line. And they're pretty much budget phones. They range in price from $200 to $300. In 2018, this particular phone cost $250 brand new, and now it's for the base version, and then there was an upgraded version for $320. So this particular example that I'm going to show you is a fully unlocked Moto G6. I personally got this phone back in September of 2018, and now in June of 2020, I am going to be selling the phone. In fact, the phone is already sold. And throughout this video, I'll pretty much explain why I am selling the phone. But before that, let's go ahead and take a quick look at what you get when you buy a Moto G6, at least unlocked. So this is the box. You have a sort of green and black color combo, which is a nice combo. You got a nice design here at the front with your Motorola logo glistening somewhat. Then you got your Lenovo branding and Moto G6 branding there. Then the bottom of the box gives you all of your essentially useless info. There's the other side, and then of course the bottom has all of your IMEI and that sort of information. So like I said, this phone did come out in 2018. In 2019 you had the Moto G7, and now for 2020, as of the time of this video, you have 3 new Moto G phones: the Moto G Fast, the Moto G Power, as well as the Moto G Stylus. And those phones all range in price from $200 to $300. And then the year before, 2020, again, you had the Moto G7 line, which included the G7 Play, G7 Power, and the G7 itself. Now, as far as this phone goes, as of today, you can still buy this phone brand new directly from Motorola for $150. And do I think it's worth it? Honestly, it's not. If you're looking on the used market, you can easily find a Moto G6 for under $200, rather $100. You can easily find a Moto G6 for under $100. You can find a G7 Play for under $100. You can find a Moto E6 for under $100. The point is, you have a lot of options if you want an unlocked Motorola phone. And in my opinion, just starting off, you're better off with another phone than the Moto G6. This phone is, in my opinion, not worth buying anymore. And we'll get to that later in the video, but finally, let's go ahead and show off the phone after all this talking. So here is the phone itself. This, again, came out in 2018, has a very 2018 design to it. So as you can see up top, there is no notch. You have a decent sized bezel, but it's really not that big. And then at the bottom of the phone, you have a decent sized chin with your Motorola logo and a fingerprint reader here in the middle. On the bottom of the phone, you have your USB-C charging port, as well as a headphone jack, which is always nice to see. This phone does support fast charging, and if you buy this phone, it will include a Motorola Turbo Power charger, which I do believe charges the phone at 15 watts. At the top, you do have a microphone, and on the back of the phone, you have your dual rear cameras. Now, honestly, this is a bit misleading, the cameras. This phone does have dual cameras, but the main camera is a 12 megapixel shooter, and then the secondary camera is a 5 megapixel depth camera. So this depth camera, it's not a wide angle, it's not a macro. It honestly doesn't do much of anything. It is just a depth camera, essentially used to support the main camera in making sure that, the best photos possible can come out. So that's all it is. So even though this phone does have dual cameras, it really is not a true dual camera setup. And I believe basically the same camera setup was used on the Moto G7. Now, I do have the phone in a case right now. This is an Incipio case, and you do want to keep this phone in a case, especially because this phone does have a glass back. This was actually the first Moto G to feature a glass back, and there you can see the glass back. It's a very nice glass back. It's very smooth. You got curved edges here, and it just gives off a really premium look for a then $250 phone, brand new. It just looks beautiful. Now, there's no wireless charging. Don't expect that on a cheaper phone like this, but it's a really, really nice looking phone, I gotta say. But being a glass back phone, you do have to be careful. You know, glass is glass, glass can break. And, so always keep a case on this phone, because even if you're careful, this thing will get covered easily in fingerprints. It will get covered in fingerprints, so all you do is a case on the phone. And while we have that out, we're going to check out our SIM tray, which is right up here. So we put in our SIM tool. And when we pull out our SIM tray, you'll find that this does have a nano SIM as well as a micro SD card, so that's nice to see. Now, this phone does not have any sort of water resistance rating. Again, it's a cheaper phone, but Motorola does say that the phone is splash resistant. And I've used this phone in the rain a few times, and I've had no issues, so I wouldn't be concerned about that. And so that does wrap up the exterior portion of the video. So I'm now going to go ahead, turn on the phone, and we'll see what else the Moto G6 has to offer. Okay, so the phone is now on, but first I do want to show off your Moto display. You get this pretty much on essentially any Motorola phone. You just pick up the phone, bring it towards your face, and the display turns on, showing you your time, your battery life on the phone, as well as any notifications. Like this one is telling me I have an alarm. Now, to bring up to your lock screen, you just hit the power button, and there is your lock screen with a shortcut at the bottom left to your Google Assistant. So your Google Assistant is right here at the bottom left of the phone. And then on the bottom right, you do have access to your camera. Again, this is a 12 megapixel camera with a 5 megapixel depth camera. And as you can see, you got your notifications right there. Now, to unlock the phone, you do have a fingerprint reader here at the bottom, and it's pretty small, but it does work very well, and this also acts as a gesture pad if you'd like to use that instead of on-screen buttons. But as you can see, going in and out of the phone, you can use the fingerprint reader to both lock the phone and unlock the phone, which you can't do that on modern phones that have rear-mounted sensors, so this is pretty cool. This phone also comes equipped with Face Unlock, so go ahead and test out that feature. And as you can see, Face Unlock is pretty quick on this phone. So it's a little bit slower than the fingerprint reader, but it's really not too bad. So this is the UI of the phone. This phone does have Android 9 Pie on it. It originally came with Oreo, but it did get updated to Pie. In terms of performance, like just kind of scrolling through here, the UI, it is very phonetic, but this phone stutters a lot. Just from personal experience of using this phone, the phone just stutters a lot, and I mean a lot. So opening up the camera here, it is pretty quick. You got your video mode here. This can record in 1080p, and this is your standard camera. So we'll take a picture. As you can see, it's pretty quick, but once you throw a couple of apps at this phone, things can slow down pretty quickly. So I go in here to the Discover app, and as you can see, this is taking a bit longer to load. I will say though, this display is very nice. This is a 1080p IPS display. It is 5.7 inches, and again, it is really nice. It is a really nice display, I gotta say. So again, it's a 5.7 inch 1080p display. Let's go into what this phone has. So I'm gonna go into the CPU-Z app, and this phone has the Snapdragon 450 processor with 3 gigabytes of RAM, as you can see there, and a 1080p IPS display with a 428 ppi, which is pretty good. And so yeah, this does have Android 9 on the phone. It came originally with Android 8.0, but now it has Android 9. This phone will probably not get Android 10. I don't think this phone will get upgraded. Motorola is very bad now when it comes to updating their phones, so I really doubt this will get Android 10. But on Android 9, the phone is kind of bad. I mean, times like here, it works pretty decently, but when you throw a couple of apps at this phone can stutter pretty easily. This phone can stutter pretty easily. So you got your drop downs there. It does have auto brightness, and it's up a little high right now, but the phone is pretty visible outdoors. So of course you got here all of your different settings. This is your battery app, of course, and the battery life on this phone is decent. I'll show you that real quick. But again, this phone does stutter sometimes, and it has sometimes weird glitches. So for example, if I go into storage here, this will just constantly load and load. It will not actually show you the storage. For what reason, I don't know. but the phone does have weird glitches sometimes. Now, as far as the battery life of the Moto G6, it is very much average. So let me see if I can find a good one. So this here, I went from 99 to 21% with a screen on time of 5 hours 44 minutes, which is decent but nothing special. And then here, from 96% to 24%, 5 hours and 3 minutes of screen on time. And then here, we got 5.5 hours of screen on time from 95 to 24%. So depending on how you use the phone, it'll last you 5 to 5.5 hours screen on time, which if you're a power user, that's not enough. You definitely want another phone. But if you're a more basic user, that'll definitely get the job done. And as you can see, going to apps here, sometimes it can take a little while to load, like the clock. As you see, a lot of hesitation there to open up the clock app. But other apps are pretty smooth. This is the HP app I'm opening up for my printer. And yeah, definitely took a little while to open up there. And partly that's because of the Snapdragon 450, but honestly, this phone just tends to stutter. It does stutter sometimes. So anyway, I'm going to go into Dead Trigger 2 here just to give you all a little gaming demo. And as far as gaming goes, for very basic games, the Moto G6 works. But for slightly more intense games such as Dead Trigger 2, it works, but it definitely stutters a bit. So there we go. So I'm going to launch into a match here on Dead Trigger 2, go to a level. And as you can see, it will take a little while to load. And again, that's because with the specs, this phone is somewhat limited. And as you can see, it's not bad, but yeah, you can see the stuttering. You can see there are some drop frames here as I kill a zombie. So again, you do not want to be gaming on this phone. You do not. And it might just be optimization, because this game came out in 2013. So this is not the most modern, cutting-edge game. So it is usable, but as you can see, sometimes there's a little bit of stuttering as I move around. It's not bad, but there are definitely better options. So this is pretty much the most extreme game I'm throwing at it right now. I'm about to die. Alright, that's enough of that. So there's your quick gaming demo. Final thoughts on the Moto G6. By all measures, this is pretty much an average phone. The camera quality is good, but not amazing. The screen is really good in my opinion. The battery life, though, is average. And in terms of the performance, it is average. But even though it's not showing it, this phone can easily stutter. And it can get really bad. And I did show you that quirk where if I go into the storage, it'll just never load for some reason. Like, I don't know why it won't do that. But you see here, you got your multitasking. It is pretty smooth, although it does have to reload. Because, again, this does have only 3 gigs of RAM, so there are limitations there. But final thoughts on the Moto G6. Is the phone worth it? In my opinion, it's not. I think there are better phones out there. I would much rather buy the Moto G7 Play or the Moto G7 Power or even the Moto E6.